Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and I'm just sitting here drinking my morning coffee. Yes, my cup is really that big. Looking sexy as hell while I do it. And I thought I would chat with you guys and gals briefly about concerns of mixed grip on the deadlift creating muscle imbalances. A couple points. Occasionally I will get someone who comes in my comments and says, I see your imbalances from doing it. And it's like, you see what's been removed by a doctor. Sorry, that has nothing to do with, well, it does have to do with mixed grip on the deadlift, because I tore my bicep, right? See the surgical scar there where the doctor went in and took a chunk out. I tore my bicep, I believe, in 2002. So that's 23 years ago. I had like 605 on the bar. And I was doing doubles with it. So second rep tore. But that was an overuse related. There was a lot of stuff going on at the time. It then later got infected, and the doctor had to take a chunk out during the healing process. Whole backstory. So don't use me as the example. I am not the example you want to use. So people need to just stop. So let's talk about what's really going on and why this isn't a concern. You see it highlighted all the time. Oh, you should be concerned about it. Why? Number one, it's never really been demonstrated in the lab in serious strength athletes. So if people pulling 600, 700, 800 pounds aren't really seeing it to a meaningful degree, you guys who are doing sets of 5 with 400 pounds on the deadlift, I probably wouldn't worry about it. But that aside, it really doesn't create those imbalances because we're not using the deadlift as the primary muscle builder for our upper body. Okay, and before people say, but I think, don't you say that it can contribute? Yes, it can contribute. But what I want everyone to think about, where is most of your back and arm and trap and development stuff coming from? It's probably coming from rows, pull-ups, curls, things like that, right? I would think so. And again, you want evidence. There are people who don't do a lot of back work, who have big deadlifts, who don't always have a great back. And I've had clients who do that. You guys remember my client Demi from the vlogs, right? When he came to me, he didn't do any real lat work because he's like, I figured deadlifts covered it. He was deadlifting 240 kilograms already. That's over 500 pounds, okay? We started doing tons of rows, and his back got a lot bigger really fast. So kind of the point I would make here, I think it's really tit for tat as far as people thinking that they're going to develop a lat or a trap imbalance from doing mixed grip deadlifts. Well, why aren't you doing those other movements? If I can take a lifter who deadlifts over 500 pounds already and make substantial rapid back development, their lats, traps, posterior delts, everything, by doing a bunch of rows, how many of you really think that you're getting a huge, meaningful contribution here? I mean, and realistically, at the end of the day, what's going to make you imbalanced? Pulling your other stuff imbalanced, okay? Your rows, your pull-ups, okay? Don't do rows with a mixed grip. I would say that's probably good advice. And if we're rotating through different grips over time, because I mean, people have seen me do that. You guys have seen me do how many types of rows? You've seen me do underhand grip rows. You've seen me do hammer grip rows, pronated grip rows, strict rows, seal rows, standing rows, pen leg rows. I've done all this stuff over the years. Okay, in terms of balance on both sides, don't you think it's probably pretty good at that point? And most of you are probably over the years doing the same thing with your pull-ups and chin-ups. You guys have watched me do phases with really wide grip, overhand grip pull-ups, then doing weighted chin-ups, such as what I'm doing this week. You're watching me do weighted chins, right? Don't you guys think that covers the gambit of these movements? So if your training is building everything balanced, right? Because you're doing rows or pull-ups or chin-ups, and you're occasionally varying the grips and stuff anyways over time, don't you think you're going to have balanced development overall? Of course. Do you really think a little bit of mixed grip deadlifting? Because realistically, how many sets are we really doing? I mean, what's the most you guys have seen me do in a week? 6 sets, and that's crazy. For deadlift volume, that's a crazy amount of volume. A lot of phases of my training, it's 1 to 2 reps. All right. Are you guys doing 10 sets of mixed grip deadlifts every week? I mean, is this your primary training modality? Now, if you are, okay, maybe you might see a small imbalance. Maybe, hypothetically. It's never really been found to be a big deal. Again, people make much about nothing. But what happens as soon as you start doing rows and pull-ups and things? That's going to become the larger overall training stimulus of your upper body. Okay? All right, so you have that to factor in. Then you have the other factor. People are worried about imbalances from that, but you're going to have imbalances no matter what. People say, what do you mean? Do you know that your skeleton, humans, are asymmetrical? Okay? I want people to keep this in mind. Doing everything balanced with limited exercise selection will create an imbalanced musculature. Automatically. It's going to happen. Why? You all have one arm longer than the other. You all have one leg longer than the other. You know that a large percentage of people have slightly different shoulder angles inside their joints. Most people have one hip that has some slightly displaced angle versus the other in the bone structure. You may not have symmetrical hip angles. So, you see where I'm going with this? If you do every exercise perfectly balanced, you will be imbalanced in your musculature by default. There's a reason competitive bodybuilders have to work so hard oftentimes to have a perfectly symmetrical physique. Because balanced training will produce an asymmetrical musculature anyways. Because your skeleton is asymmetrical. This is, again, another reason using multiple exercises over time is probably not a bad idea. Right? It's probably not a bad idea to use a couple different types of chest presses over the year. It's not a bad idea to do a few different types of pulls and different grips and stuff. Hey, because you're going to be asymmetric, and it will probably help you just build a better overall balanced musculature. Not a bad idea. But at the end of the day, here's what I would say to people. Are you worried about it? It's not an injury risk. If, in other words, your training itself under load, your natural, comfortable, correct form, creates some mild asymmetry, that is probably a very safe asymmetry, right? You're not likely to get hurt lifting as a result of it. It may not be ideal if you were trying to win the Mr. Olympia, in which case you're probably going to die young anyways. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I'll talk to you guys next.